have it on our bookshelf.
All right.
I will. So we are going to begin with poet Pete Solomita. His latest manuscript, From Here to Institutionalize, and is that out there?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's the old book.
Oh, that's the, okay. It's pending publication, I'm sorry. His debut collection, Bitter Pill, is out there,
Yes.
right? Okay. Two Shots and a Piece of Cake was published in 2022 by Obsolete Press. He hosts the podcast, which I was mentioning, Storytelling on Orchard Street, which is wonderful. You should go to the YouTube channel. Is that where?
YouTube, Spotify, Apple.
Okay.
Yeah.
And listen to them. And we've had actually several of our members, Italian American writers, have been on.
Yes.
So definitely check that out. And yes, available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. In addition, he produces the bi-monthly live show, The Very Swell Variety Show at Young Ethel's. He often reads his poetry with musical accompaniment by the Bitter Pill Collective. And welcome, and I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
I'm so glad.
I appreciate you and Maria inviting me here. This is a big deal for me. It makes me think of tapping into my family and my ancestors and my family and Italian heritage. And my parents certainly would be proud if they were able to see this. So I'm going to read 4 that are family related and then go on to what I typically do. This one's called An Ancestral Tree. My father had an Uncle Tony. Both are now passed away. Uncle Tony was an iceman. No, he didn't kill people, he delivered ice. Big blocks of ice, up flights of stairs with large tongs or straps, I presume. I imagine he was very strong. This was in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, you know, when a fridge was called an ice box because it was a box with ice that kept food cool. I'm talking a long time ago. It's been years since he passed. My dad died in 2018. Before Dad passed away, he gave me a cavatelli machine. Cavatelli is a pasta shape. Uncle Tony gave it to my dad probably about 50 years ago. In the box were Uncle Tony's recipes on note cards. Now that's history to me, a family heirloom if you know what I mean. Maybe it's time to make a batch of cavatelli and a pot of all-day sauce and tap into my ancestral tree. This one I wrote, Kathy mentioned she was on my podcast, and then I read her book, Not for Nothing, and this inspired by her book, and it's semi-autobiographical. It's called In My Room, not the Beach Boys. The neatly cut squares of plum cake were piled high on the china platter. The good one my mother saves for important company. The cake was from Front Street Bakery, not Intiman's, so it was a big deal. I wanted one really bad, but I'm afraid if I choose the wrong one, the pile will cascade down like a failed Jenga move. I could hear my mom swearing in the kitchen, some words I don't recognize mixed in with pasta fagioli, Madonna Mia, and a damn dumb stupid. It might be directed at me, so I retreated and went to my room. I can smell the aroma of bitter coffee brewing vigorously in the old percolator on the old gas stove, the one you have to light with a match. Company would be here soon and I wanted to be alone. I opened and then slammed the door. I plop on my bed and I put on the headphones and blast Soft Parade by the Doors. Because, you know, you can't petition the Lord with prayer. Mostly because after what I did, he probably wouldn't listen anyway. Actually, the list of sins were quite long. I decided it wasn't worth counting them if I'm going to hell anyway. That's what my father yells at me in a voice that's so loud it windows shake. You'll never amount to anything if you don't stop wasting your time with foolish friends and that goddamn awful rock and roll. Now, Jerry Vale, that's a man that can sing. He's good looking and a good Italian Catholic man. You should be more like him. I try to block out the disappointment I seem to cause, and I bury myself in Morrison's deep voice that calls out poetic words that are spellbinding for a 13-year-old boy who hasn't gone past his suburban town in Nassau County, and dreams of screaming fans going wild in theaters with walls shaken by the vibrations of a band, blaring pain with power chords, thumping bass and drums hit so hard shards of war would go flying in time with the song. Eventually the song is over, the record comes to an end, and I'm left with a repeating skip that won't stop until I get up and make it stop. But my life seems to go in circles with no change worth mentioning, so I revel in the repeated noise and drift off to sleep, where dreams happen when you can be right by yourself. But that's not the case today. Family, for better or worse, is all I have. This one's called Get Off the Mat. I was very close to my niece when she was a teenager. I took her to buy her first bass guitar in New York City. And then she went off to school in Boston at Northeastern. And the next thing I hear, she's going to wrestling school in North Carolina. Now, mind you, she was 5 foot tall and petite at the time, so it was very odd for me. And then years later, I got to see her wrestle in Farmingdale in a professional outing. It's called Get Off the Mat. She climbs the ropes, dangles high, balancing light like an athlete in the Olympics, and lets out a scream, the kind that calls attention because she worked on it most of her life. Her image, body and mind, long days, gym workouts until the pain burns and the sweat pours. Drop to the mat, bruised body and soul, life knocks and sometimes you fall. Dream chasing, retribution for mistakes made, hoping for the glory, the cheers and the pats on the back, and maybe a buck or two. You go to sleep with aches too big to ignore, and you wake up and you summon the drive to get in the ring again. Life has never been so good. This one I wrote probably the next day after my father's funeral. It's called No Longer Here. Cold rain descends, umbrellas shield as taps play softly from behind. The priest says a prayer as we mourn and gaze at the casket in front of open earth. Cut stone, chiseled inscription, two reunited again, laid for eternity. Now just memories, no longer here, to laugh with, to share a pot of soup with, to hug and kiss. It's time to say goodbye. We will mourn and hold you both in heart and mind, in photos, stories, and poems. Live in life in your name, in your honor, with love, always. This one's called Road Warrior. She stood erect with her chest puffed forward like a warrior preparing for the kill, and let out a guttural scream that emanated from her diaphragm and vibrated in her throat like ping pong balls in an air-filled tube. It was a violent release of anger, pain stored deep in her soul at the behest of a lifetime of abuse. And it shook the foundation to the core that left the audience both stunned and exhilarated at the same time. The drummer pounded out a loud thumping beat that was a cue for the band to come in with their mournful tune in a minor key. They knew they were part of a moment and a witness too. It was a late-night religious experience, cathartic for those wishing to have something to believe in. And as sweat poured down her brow, she coaxed out every last drop of emotion she had left to give. And for that night, under the glare of the colored stage lights, amongst the din of the amplified grit, she was free. She felt like she was someone better than her own image of who she is. And when she collapsed backstage in a worn-out, stained sofa chair with a cold beer in her hand, she knew that she had briefly commanded her demons as they danced relentlessly in her head. They were kept at bay until the quiet of the next day, when they would begin to stir yet again. While driving to the next town in the harsh of the light of the morning sun, she slumped in the back of the van, looking out the window at trees and light posts whooshing by on the lonely stretch of another American highway. And she quietly repeated the mantra in her head, I am free, I am free, I am free. And I will summon the courage to stand on another stage in another town in front of another faceless crowd who will never know how truly lonely I am. In the 90s, I worked for Lifebeat, the music industry fights AIDS. My job was to get musicians and performers to go to AIDS wards in hospitals and long-term care facilities. This was kind of like at the peak of the AIDS crisis. This is about one of the residents at Rivington House that I remember to this day. With his gloved hands, he smacked the plate-sized button, and the front door of the residence automatically opened, and he wheeled himself out the door, down the ramp, and up the block to the park. It's not central, but it had trees and benches and sometimes pretty girls flitting by. And it took him back when he was young and had game. But now he was stuck in his chair, watching life on the east side leave him behind. He didn't recognize anyone anymore, and he missed the old days, hanging out on the street corner, drinking a Colt 45 and bragging with the crew. They are long gone, and Jimmy's Corner Bodega was now a fancy boutique. He quickly gulped down his Pastello, afraid some well-meaning hipster would toss coins in his grind. No, he didn't take handouts, at least not that way. And yeah, he lived on the government's dime, but not by choice. He made the best of it living with AIDS in a long-term care facility. But despite the hanging beads and the colored lights and the photos of his angel plastered on his wall, it was just a hospital room when you get down to it. It's been 8 years, and he can't remember how it came down to this, or he was just really good at forgetting. He opened his sketchbook and drew gods and heroes in a place much better than this. Time was suspended as images filled the clouds and the pencil moved across the page. The minutes of the day were chipped away, and it was time to go back and wait in this room for the squeaky wheels of the cart to come down the hall and be served a plate of humility pills and a cup of juice to wash it down. Life, it's called Mountain Town. Life used to be easier, I tell you. And nowadays it's just too damn cold. The town is full of rich city folk who turn up their nose at a man in worn and tattered flannel. But damn it, I've been in this town since the 70s when people around here actually cared. You know, back then it was free and easy, it seemed, and the mountains were a sight to behold. Oh, we created sculpture, music, prose, furniture. We shared pots of chili and cold pitchers of beer. It seemed like everyone you ran into had something to say and a talent to display. I came here to get educated, and I wound up dropping out, but I stuck around. Somehow, bills got paid with enough left over for a party or two, but now it's a loaf of white bread and jam and yesterday's coffee pot in the fridge. Oh, and a butter too I grew last summer. Now, it's not exactly the high life, but it beats being locked up, which I've experienced a day or two in my life. But I'm too old to fight now, but I'm not too old for opinions, that's for sure. I just wish Clara had made it. I guess she was committed once too often and found solace stepping in front of a speeding train. I was pissed, I was hurt and angry for a long time, maybe because she was the only one who made me laugh and would put up with my shit for more than a day or two. But deep down, I understand. It was nice once, now it's just time passing and not much more than that. This one's about homelessness. It's called Just a Statistic. I used to spend all my time trying to be somebody I'm not, and now I'm trying not to be somebody I am. I ride the trains with no money in my pocket. I sing my heart out for a buck. Sam Cooke's You Send Me, a crowd favorite. I steal an apple and a banana off the vegetable stands when I can. And when I'm really hungry, I go to Chelsea. They got good meals at Holy Apostles for lunch. They even let you take a plate to go. And sometimes they have free clothes and toiletries you can take with you. But when I'm flush, I stop by Patty's for a happy hour shot in a brew. Nothing tops the all-you-can-eat corned beef and cabbage and the boiled potatoes. They've been serving it for years. I love the city when the sun goes down. It gets way less crowded and the hustle and the bustle slows down. And I feel like I can finally be myself and I don't feel so self-conscious. And my fellow crazies, outcasts and outsiders and misfits, they all come out. I can't say this was my dream when I moved here from Oklahoma. I was 21 and full of big dreams. I had a good moment or two, but eventually the grind beat me down and so did getting old. But I still like it here. I still like it here. I still like it here. Even if it means sleeping on the streets and being a statistic, the only way I count. Haven't made you cry yet? This one's called Outstanding Young Man. It's about the brutality of war. Johnny played with plastic soldiers while his sister hugged her rag doll. He aimed his toy gun at the enemy in garbage-strewn lots, and he climbed hills with weight on his back. Johnny had a sweetheart who was his queen at the prom. What a handsome couple, everyone said, so young and full of promise. Johnny joined the ROTC while his roommates got stoned. He was patriotic to the core, just like his dad, his grandpa. Johnny went overseas, where artillery blasts rattled his brain. He fought the nightmares, praying to find daylight in the company of his new bride. Johnny went home a hero until he struggled keeping jobs and wound up on the welfare line. Johnny had pain so deep, even from himself, it was hiding. Johnny woke up sweating. He got up quietly so not to disturb his wife. He softly descended the basement stairs. He opened the lock case to his service revolver and pulled the trigger with a smile. Shattering the stillness in what was his childhood home, Johnny made the news the next day. What a shock, everyone say. Why did Johnny do it? He was such an outstanding young man. My last one is a little less intense. It's about a woman who finally realized she can be who she wanted to be. It's called Her Life Now. She gave up caring what others thought after a lifetime of anxiety-induced inner turmoil. She needed some extra cash. It was getting expensive hiding her true nature, so she grew her beard out, almost a ruddy brown like a Krylon can from 1979. It was pretty startling, a Fellini magical profile. She felt proud. She signed up for a side hustle in Coney Island. Side shows by the seashore for the locals, the dreamers, and the bored, who were looking for a thrill out from the hot summer sun. She felt kinship amongst her fellow outcasts and outsiders who had left mainstream a long time ago. They stopped trying to fit into a world not meant for their kind. But when the spotlight was turned on and the show began and the Barker welcomed the audience, the curtain was raised. They hit the stage. Life was on their terms and nothing else mattered now. The thrills of oddity, curiosity on breathtaking display as the sun slowly went down. The show came to a close. Take a bow to mad applause. Drop the curtain until the next show, where she and her kind will pass the time. This is her new glorious life now. Thank you.